Hi, I'm Akilla. Welcome to my channel. If you've watched me on TikTok or you've listened to my podcast, Friend Crush with Akilla, you might be familiar with my work, but general introduction is that I try and explore concepts around self-empowerment and authenticity. How can we communicate these ideas so that people feel empowered to live their best life, to be hot and have fun according to how they define it? My life philosophy is being hot and having fun. Obviously, I have a podcast about it, but TLDR, being hot is not about adhering to beauty standards, and having fun is not about being hedonistic. It's about understanding what an authentic association with these words are for you. So, being hot is looking good, feeling good according to how you define it, and doing the things that allow you to embody that in a sustainable way. And having fun is being able to do the things that you enjoy, being able to live a life that has a healthy foundation of contentment and a pursuit of joy for yourself and joy for the people around you. I'm a feminist at heart, and that is my agenda, regardless of how I word my content. I believe in not only self-empowerment, but also community and societal empowerment. And if you don't have healthy individuals, you don't have a healthy society. And I think that so much of the way that we're conditioned by society and the messaging that we constantly receive and the expectations and the pressure that we internalize from these messages is what alienates us from being able to have a healthy relationship with self and therefore extended community. And then we end up in toxic, destructive cycles. So I don't think I have the answers in terms of how we can restructure society, but I think that if we can start with our relationship with ourselves, better understand this, and then create healthier relationships with the people around us, that's a better start than none, no? So with that being said, today's video is about doing what you enjoy. And from a young age, you always hear people saying, follow your passion, you need to love what you do, etc., etc. But this always seems at odds with the sorts of things that are rewarded by society, or the sorts of achievements that society places value on. It's like, well, if I don't want to be a millionaire, or if I don't want to do the things that allow you to become a millionaire, how can I ever be successful? Because society says that if you're not making this amount of money, or you don't look a certain way, then you're not deemed successful. But what you realize as you get older is that society's expectations, that framework for value and assessing value, is very narrow. It's just one of many frameworks that you could adhere to or follow in order to achieve success. And I think that being able to define success in your own terms according to what brings you joy, how do you feel, what allows you to be the best version of yourself and allows you to show up as that person to your relationships and to your community and the people that you care about and the people that care about you, that is a more sustainable way of living. And it takes time to understand that framework, and recognizing that that framework is ever evolving as well. The framework that you assess your joy through in your early 20s is going to be different to that of your 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s. Priorities change because things are changing all the time. And I think that part of life is the experience of it. Life is to be lived. It's a journey. It's like a project. You constantly are fed new information. You can explore your curiosities. You can develop your awareness, develop your understanding. The things that I thought yesterday are different to the things that I think today, because new information is always made available to me, and I'm constantly developing and shaping my view of myself and the world around me. How do we understand joy? I think when we haven't detached from the internalization of society's expectations, those of our parents, those of our social circle, etc., we assume that joy and happiness is a destination. If I do this thing, then I will be happy. Once I have this, then I will be happy. When in reality, joy is something that you can cultivate in your life by practicing gratitude and focusing on the details and your daily habits and bringing intention and awareness to the things that you do. Of course, there is a balance to be struck between long-term goals and short-term goals. And I think that being hot and having fun is about having an overall vibe that you're striving for in your life, okay? I want to be hot and having fun more than I'm being ugly and having a bad time. But being ugly and having a bad time sometimes is a necessary experience in order to understand the contrast between being hot and having fun and being ugly and having a bad time, right? But I don't want to spend more time being ugly and having a bad time. I don't want to spend more time in the flop than I do in the sleigh. But recognizing that these two things are necessary in order for us to have a well-rounded experience of life. And you don't really know what sleigh is if you haven't truly experienced a flop. And the spectrum of your experience and the diversity of your experience widens and expands when you allow yourself to feel the full spectrum of your emotions. Oftentimes we run from shame and guilt and boredom and fear and anxiety because we think the presence of those feelings is inherently bad and we can't be happy if those things are present. When in reality, I think happiness, joy, and especially contentment exists because we allow space for that full spectrum. I'm aware that I could be sad, but I could also be happy. It's not the absence of sadness that allows me to be happy. It's my ability to respond in a healthy way and recognize that happiness is just around the corner. You know, the more I focus on my sadness, the more it compounds. And the more I can detach from it and see the bigger picture, the easier it will be for me to naturally navigate and move from one emotion to another. And I always use the emotional spiral as a reference point because your emotions are like the weather. You know, they come and go. And understanding that your emotions come up subconsciously and then your feelings are the thoughts and the story that you attach to your emotions means that you can develop an awareness of the story that you write and that you can detach from that story and you can rewrite it. That is actually how your experience is being defined moment to moment. It's the story that you attach to the way that you feel and the experiences that you have that determine your overall experience of life. If I keep telling myself that I enjoy something that I don't and that I'm not going to be happy until I achieve a certain thing, then that is going to further entrench me into that narrative. But if I say to myself that, okay, this is something that I don't enjoy right now and I'm working on how I can adjust my experience so that I have less of this and more of something I actually enjoy, and I'm going to learn to enjoy that process. I'm going to practice gratitude for the privilege and the opportunity that I have with the awareness, rather than assuming that privilege is something that only comes from outside of us. Opportunity is only something that comes from outside of us, recognizing that every moment there is opportunity for you to choose and be intentional with which step you take next. It's very easy when you are too attached to an external framework that you've internalized to assume that you only have options that are in service of meeting these requirements that you've internalized. But when you can develop a little bit of awareness and detachment from those frameworks, you realize that there are many options available to you at any moment, and trusting your intuition and allowing your feelings to guide you rather than define you or to overwhelm you is how you can navigate with more awareness and intention. And the thing with the human experience is that everyone is unique, okay? You're not special because we're all human. One person does not have inherently more value than the other, but within a structure or a framework that's human made, people will try to determine value based on how many followers someone has, how beautiful someone is according to these requirements, how much money someone makes according to these requirements. Those are all artificial frameworks, okay? But by virtue of being a person, you have inherent value. And also recognizing that if you're going to go into a certain framework and you're seeking success under that framework, it's a game to be played. It's not a inherent reflection of your value as a person, but maybe your value as according to that framework, right? And having an awareness about how you navigate those things is important too, because those frameworks are always going to exist as long as humans exist, because we're unhinged and we love to just create little competitions between each other. And there's room for that for some people and there isn't for others. Some people enjoy that, other people don't. And if you don't enjoy it, recognizing that it's okay for you to not enjoy it and that your enjoyment comes from other things in life, rather than forcing yourself to do something that doesn't come naturally to you or that you never feel a sense of satisfaction from, even if you're good at it. That is the privilege of choice. That is the awareness. That is awareness giving you the privilege of choice that you wouldn't have if you were too attached to joy coming as a result of outcomes achieved in said framework. So because you are unique according to your age, where you were born, your education, your gender, your race, your class, the intersection of these things, subjective joy is different to objective joy. Each person's definition of joy, the things that bring joy to them, are going to be slightly different, right? And there are people that you have overlap with and people that you have no overlap with. But the vibration of joy is consistent. That is the consistent truth. So our experiences of these emotions and these dynamics is universal, but the details of how these things occur within our own experience are going to differ. And when you're able to really hone in on what brings you joy, what do you enjoy doing? Whose company do you enjoy? Do you enjoy your own company? What are the things that you can do to nurture that experience and nurture that feeling within yourself and in the relationships with the people around you? That's how you live a joyful life. And that's how you're going to be a better version of yourself, and you're going to show up for other people and other relationships in a way that adds value and isn't you meeting other people's needs at the expense of your own, isn't you feeling miserable. More often than not, we want to be hot and have fun, okay? We need to sustain the slay and manage the flop. You don't have to avoid flopping. You can avoid staying in a flop for too long. I think that oftentimes when we become attached to joy being a destination or some kind of reward for being able to satisfy other people's expectations of us, we become alienated from our own experience. We lose touch with the ability to meet our own needs and the ability to create joy in our own life. And I think that's one of the greatest disservices that people do to each other. The idea that my joy requires other people to do what I want or do what I do, rather than feeling good about the things that I do to nurture my own joy. What brings me joy and what brings you joy might be completely different, but I think that true empowerment is allowing each other the space to explore those things without there being a competition and without the assumption that me being happy comes at the expense of you being happy, or you being happy comes at the expense of me being happy. For example, recently in Shanghai, there have been a lot of events around Fashion Week. And for me and my personality and what's unique to me, I can enjoy being out for a bit, but I definitely need a lot of time alone in order to recharge. And I have a lot of friends that are a lot more extroverted than I am. And there is like a balance that we strike in terms of how much I go out, how much they go out, and how much fun we can have together. And rather than assuming that, okay, I have to be at every single event because otherwise I'm not truly having a good time, I'm not maximizing a good time according to the definition of like being part of this scene or being in this community, I really have to tune in to how I'm feeling at any given moment. If I feel really tired and overwhelmed, within reason, not just like I have to say no to certain things that I'm not going to be able to show up for. And this isn't like self-aggrandizing, like everything has to bend to my will. I'm not going to go, so nobody else should go. It's just, I'm going to sit this one out and I'll meet you guys at the next thing. And then understanding that I'm going to be able to show up as a better version of myself to future events because I've taken time to rest. And the same for my relationships with my friends in this context, being able to communicate to them that I'll see them at the next event because I'm just need a little time to powwow and rest at home, and understanding that them being at the event and me not being at the event doesn't necessarily infringe upon either of our rights to joy. They're still going to have a good time. I still want them to have a good time even if I'm not there, and they look forward to the next time that we'll be together, but it's not an essential requirement for me to be there even if I'm miserable in order for them to be happy. And that can take time, especially when you've been in toxic friendships or relationships where there is an unequal energy exchange. But slowly developing an awareness of how you feel and the story that you write around your feelings is important. So how do we do this? Well, I have many podcast episodes and TikTok videos where I talk about self-care habits that allow you to connect to yourself and develop the practice of observing the difference between developing a practice that allows you to observe the difference between the thoughts and the thinker. So you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts will come up and you will have millions of different thoughts every day. And to not think is to not breathe, okay? And you have a subconscious mind that actually occupies most of your brain activity, and then a conscious mind. So there are a lot of wheels that are turning that you're not consciously aware of at any given moment of the day. And being able to observe your thoughts means that you can choose what you do and don't identify with, what you do and don't follow, according to whatever the overall vibe that you're trying to strive for in your life. So for me, being hot and having fun. When I practice meditation, journaling, having some kind of physical activity, spending time by myself, managing my social media use, this allows me to create space in my mind to observe my thoughts and feelings and to choose what I do and don't do according to my long-term goal of being hot and having fun. If I wasn't developing an awareness of my thoughts and feelings and I didn't have an overarching theme that I was aiming for, I would be at risk of being easily manipulated by others or having other people set the standard and the tone for my life without me even realizing. If you don't have healthy boundaries for yourself, those boundaries will be defined by other people. And again, this is an ongoing process. And I think that if we let go of the illusion that there is one answer or one thought or one line that's going to free us and that we'll have everything figured out, and that happiness is some kind of destination, we can embrace this journey and this process and practicing gratitude along the way for all the different cues, the information, the relationships, the connections, and the experiences that we have. It's not that I can tell you something that will make everything click into place and you'll never have a problem again. It's that there are practices that you can implement into your day-to-day life that make it easier for you to separate between the thoughts and the thinker, that make it easier for you to tune in to how you really feel and what it is you really want to do in any given moment, and to take accountability for that. Sometimes you will do things that you didn't really want to do and you didn't enjoy the outcome, but you recognize that the choice is available to you to do differently next time, or to do the same if you so choose. So recognizing also that when you make a decision and you enjoy the outcome and it pays off and you're doing it consistently and you see the value that it brings to you and the world around you, you have the choice to keep doing that. I think the 80-20 rule is very helpful in many aspects of life, and especially when it comes to being hot and having fun. It's not that you completely avoid anything that makes you ugly or have a bad time, but if you have a majority hot and having fun experience, there's 20% that you're willing to tolerate in service of that. And over time, what you do to maintain being hot and having fun will change and expand and grow, and maybe what you tolerate changes as well. Recognizing that life is about this and that rather than this or that. You don't need to think about everything as good versus bad, right versus wrong, black versus white, pretty versus ugly. Things exist on a spectrum, and finding the place on the spectrum that resonates the most with you at any given moment is important, and recognizing that you move up and down this spectrum in order to explore it. And the more information you have, the more intention and awareness you can bring to where you choose to aim for, to stay on. So do things that you enjoy. You can start to take inventory of all the things that you do and ask yourself if it's really something that you care about. And sometimes you just haven't been alive long enough to really know, and more time has to pass, and you have to observe a little more closely as you participate in certain things to determine whether it really is adding to your life or not. And naturally, if you have these self-care and grounding practices in place and you're consistent with them, you will start to develop an awareness of your contentment and your baseline. And then everything is measured in accordance to your baseline, the 80% overall vibe of your life. When you leave a certain situation, do you feel better or worse or the same? For me, if I can have at least a neutral or positive impact or a neutral or positive experience, then that's what I'm going to aim for, right? And if I have a negative experience, or I experience a level of discomfort that doesn't seem to be in service of my growth or be in service of being hot and having fun, I use it as a lesson for me to better understand myself and what it is that I do and don't enjoy. And if I'm consistently engaging in a relationship or an experience or a situation where I feel more disappointed than I do enriched or empowered, then I realize that there is adjustment for me to make in terms of how much time or energy I spend on this thing, how I approach it, and then I apply a strategy to redirect the way that I apply my energy. And I think this can apply for anything in life: your relationships with your family, your friends, your work, your romantic relationships, and even the things that you do, your job, your hobbies. It's okay to change your mind, It's okay to think that you want something and think that that thing is going to give you a sense of fulfillment. Achieve it and realize that maybe you don't need to keep doing this anymore. And what is the purpose of you doing it if it's only for the satisfaction of other people's expectations and desires at the expense of your own? Something to think about. This is just a very overall vibe check, I think, and then I hope future videos will go into more detail. Thank you for tuning in. Stay hot and having fun. Sending love and slay your way. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok at Akilla. Subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Listen to the podcast, Friend Crush with Akilla, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Playlists and music, SoundCloud and Spotify at Akilla. If you're in China, you can also follow me on Red at Akilla. Drink lots of water. Tell your friends and family that you love them. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye!